This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Odyssey of the Seas this week, and as always, staff writer Richard Sims on deck with cruise news. Jumping to him now. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
We start with a man-overboard story, but not in the way you're probably thinking.
Yeah, most of the time when we talk about man-overboard cases, it involves a cruise ship passenger. But this time, it was actually a harbor boat pilot who was transferring from the pilot boat to the Emerald Princess in Hawaii. Most cruisers have seen this process before, in which, the pilot boat pulls up alongside the cruise ship and the cruise ship slows down, the pilot boat speeds up, and a very brave person transfers from the smaller boat onto the larger one in order to guide the cruise ship in or out of a port. In this case, there were 12 feet swells as the Emerald Princess was approaching the Hawaiian port, and that caused the man to fall into the water. Fortunately, the pilot was able to be pulled from the water unharmed. The ship's call to that particular port, which I believe was Kauai, was canceled. Honestly, this sort of gives you an idea of why so often when you're at a tender port, like say you're tendering to a private island, why they have to cancel, because the waves can create a real problem where it's difficult to get from the main ship to the tender. And Doug, I know this story had to have hit differently for you, given that your dad spent years as a riverboat pilot, and that's sort of the root of your love of the ocean.
Yeah, bittersweet memories there when I was reading that story. Thanking God he survived. Falling off a ship 20 feet from the ship, you're lucky you don't get sucked in, because that's a whole different outcome.
Yeah.
And a second man overboard. This one, though, didn't make it.
No, it definitely didn't. This one did involve a passenger aboard the Costa Smeralda, which was docked in Cittavice, Rome, as the ship was embarking and disembarking passengers. This is one of those sailings where at every port, people can get on, people can get off. It's sort of like an endless loop kind of thing. An investigation seems to indicate that the German man in question jumped from the ship. The locals are reporting it as I'm quoting here, a voluntary gesture. Medics, both from the ship and local emergency services, were ironically already on the scene due to an earlier medical evacuation, but they were unable to save the man's life. As always in a case like this, there are questions raised and an investigation being done. We probably, to be honest, won't ever hear more about it. That's usually the case with these things. Is an investigation is done, and I'm sure it reaches a conclusion, but there's usually not a lot of follow up with what they actually revealed.
And a system outage caused a lot of trouble across Carnival Cruise Line's entire fleet.
Yeah, the outage hit a lot of ships in the fleet on Sunday and wreaked havoc for thousands of guests. Embarkation and disembarkation processes were delayed. The hub app didn't work. Casinos and shops couldn't operate. The internet was out, all because of what the line is calling an IT issue. Interestingly, one of the things they had to do on some ships, because the system was down, as people were disembarking, the only way they could, when a ship disembarks, they have to get down to zero. They have to make sure everybody's off the ship. And the computer does that they scan your card. And once they've scanned your card, it tells them that you're no longer on. And the computer tells them when they've got them all. In this case, they weren't able to scan cards, so they had to manually count. And the only way they could do that was basically by taking everyone's cards as they were getting off the ship. They actually had to, you had to hand over your sign and sail card, and not just so they could scan it, because they couldn't scan it, they were keeping it. Brand ambassador John Heald apologized, saying that he heard from a whole lot of people who were very upset about this, because a lot of people keep those, including me, keep those cards as a souvenir. Fortunately, the outage did not impact any safety or navigation functions, according to a letter sent out to impacted guests by the cruise line's president, Christine Duffy. She went on to say that the fees charged for Wi-Fi would be refunded for the days when the systems weren't operational. And, well, let's just say that many people thought that was the least, and I do mean the very least, Carnival could do. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't offer at least some form of like future cruise credit or something, even like $50 to those who were impacted by this. Because when you think about it, having all the systems down for a day or two while you're on the ship that could have a pretty big impact on your trip.
We're at a time where people book cruises just for the casino, so I could see a lot of people getting mad.
I remember when I was in Alaska in May, when you're cruising through parts of Alaska, because the cruise ship has to be 12 nautical miles out to sea before the casino can open, there are a lot of places where you're cruising in Alaska and for whole days, the casino won't be open. And I didn't think about that before I got on. And I was so annoyed. I would go to the casino and see the sign that said, closed for the day. So I can't imagine being on a cruise where there are no such restrictions and you still can't gamble.
Meanwhile, a passenger is accusing Park West art galleries of pulling an old bait and switch.
Look, there are two types of cruisers, those who love the art galleries in general and Park West in particular, and those who avoid them like the plague. I freely admit that I kind of fall into the later category. I had an incredibly negative experience with them involving high pressure tactics that I will just call disturbing. Anyway, a Royal Caribbean passenger says that while on board one of their ships, he paid $5,000 during an auction for a signed boxing glove that was once worn by Muhammad Ali. He got back home and eventually, 10 weeks later, the item arrived, or I should say, an item arrived because it wasn't what he'd purchased. It had a different signature, a different serial number. So he complained and got a hold of the art gallery, and he was told that the items displayed on board are display pieces only and that substitutions are allowed under the purchase contract. And okay, you know what? That is no doubt true. I'm sure if you read that fine print, it says exactly that. But that just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done. And I just don't think that is fair. And I do think that's sort of a bait and switch. I mean, legally it is not because the contract does say that they can do it. But nobody who is in that art gallery sipping the champagne, probably a little too much, and bidding on these pieces thinks that when they get home, they're going to get a different piece. I mean, why would you? That's just not how you buy things. You wouldn't go to Target and buy a sweater and have them ship it, and when they got it home, it's a different color. That's just not how the world works. But apparently, it is fully legit.
And a follow-up to the teenager that was killed on Carnival Horizon.
Yeah, regular listeners will recall that about 3 months ago, a young woman named Anna Kepner was found dead in a stateroom on board the Carnival Horizon. Her death was ruled homicide via mechanical asphyxiation. And from the very beginning, there were rumors circulating that her stepbrother may have been involved in her death. Well, that young man, who is not being named because he's a juvenile, has been arrested and charged. There's no specifics that have been released regarding exactly what charges he will be facing, again, because he's a juvenile. It's important, it's really, really important to note that at no point during any of this was there any suggestion of wrongdoing on the part of Carnival or any of the employees on the Carnival Horizon. But it does look like he is I guess you would say, more than the prime suspect at this point because charges have been filed against him.
I had to read this second headline twice because Cunard Line was listed in the Epstein files dump.
Yeah, I definitely did not have this one on my bingo card. But apparently, when Sarah Ferguson, who is better known as Fergie, the former Duchess of York, when she was in really desperate financial straits, she turned to the convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, who is no longer alive, for financial support. What does this have to do with the cruise line, you might ask? Well, the BBC and other sources report that during one of their numerous email exchanges, she suggested that an intermediary might help broker a deal between herself and Cunard. She thought that they would pay her $250,000 per cruise to basically her being on the ship would be an endorsement of the line. And she thought that her doing that was worth $1 million over the course of 4 cruises. She pursued them pretty heartily. And the then president of the line eventually let her know that they don't actually make that type of arrangement. They occasionally have have what they call insight speakers, those people who you see giving lectures on board their ships, but they basically get, a cruise out of it. They don't get cruise and then another $50,000 or whatever. So she was definitely turned down, but it was just a little bit of a surprise, I think, for everybody to see the cruise line showing up in that way in those particular documents.
And let's end on some very good news. If you hold Royal Caribbean stock.
Yeah, as a whole, cruise line stocks have been doing really well of late. Well enough, in fact, that several are back to paying dividends. During the shutdown, when no money was coming in thanks to COVID, most of the cruise lines stopped paying dividends, which of course made sense. They had no money coming in. They had nothing really to pay out. But when things, with things in a better place now, cruise lines are once again paying. And when it comes to Royal Caribbean Group, they're paying, well, royally. It was announced this week that they'll be upping the quarterly dividend, which is currently $1. It was upped by 30% back in, I think it was September. They upped it from what it was to $1. Now it's going up to $1.50 per share, which, if you're math challenged like me, is a hefty 50% increase. If you want to get some of this money, you still have time, because it'll be paid to all owners of common stock who have shares as of the close of business on March 6th. But there is a caveat. To get that $1.50 per share dividend, you're going to have to fork over, as we record this, just north of $333 per share. But you know what they say, you got to spend money to make money.
Hey, this one just came in a little while ago, but did you see where Royal Caribbean is now? They're banning the Meta glasses, the smart glasses with the cameras in them.
I did not see that, but I mean, it makes sense to me. That is one of those new developing technologies that I am honestly a little uncomfortable with. The thought that anywhere not only on the ship, anywhere, in Disney World or your office's bathroom, someone can be wearing a pair of sunglasses that you are unaware of. They are filming you. At least, yes, we have the technology with a cell phone to tape people pretty much anywhere, but it's sort of obvious when someone is using their cell phone to tape you, or at least more obvious. But with these glasses, the fact that they can tape absolutely anywhere is kind of terrifying.
Yes, if you want to bring your Meta glasses on board a Royal Caribbean ship, make sure you read the policies there to where you can and cannot use them. All right, staff writer Richard Sims, thank you.
You're listening to Cruise Radio, America's trusted voice of the cruise industry.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Jason and his wife took a New Year's Eve cruise on Royal Caribbean's Odyssey of the Seas that went out of Bayonne, New Jersey, down here to Florida, did Port Canaveral, perfect day, Nassau, and then back up to the Northeast. Jason joins us on the line. Welcome again.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back, my friend. And excited to hear about this. And I'm curious, have you ever taken a New Year's Eve cruise before?
No, this is actually the first time I've done New Year's, and I'm super happy that I did it. It was a great experience.
This might segue into my next question. Then, give me some pre-cruise thoughts and what made you want to take this sailing.
So my wife is a teacher, and we have a lot of young kids in our family, and she would never want to miss Christmas with them. This year, the way that the weeks fell, her off week would allow us to be able to go on our New Year's Eve cruise and still be able to spend Christmas with the family. So that was really the basis of why I was able to pull it off and make it happen. Yeah.
You make your way down to the cruise terminal there. Now, you're upstate New York. Is that a day of drive for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's about 60 miles or so to the port. We were able to utilize my father-in-law to take us down because he was in town. we got lucky. We had private transportation there and back.
Yeah, so you get to the cruise terminal there. How was embarkation there in Bayonne, and how long did it take you to board Odyssey of the Seas from the curb to the ship?
So curb to ship on this particular cruise was about 32 minutes. Bayonne in general is so much more efficient. Royal Caribbean is overall more efficient on the embarkation process. Way quicker than Brooklyn or Manhattan would be. It was really smooth. We waited on an outside line, Doug, for 3 minutes maybe and went inside. And once we went inside, we checked in instantaneously and walked onto the ship.
That is awesome. So you make your way on board Odyssey. What were your first impressions?
It's a beautiful ship. I was really excited that the ship was still decorated for Christmas, even though it was the 28th. The Christmas trees were still up. All the lights were still up. So we were able to get the nice pictures, and all of the Christmas spirit was still very noticeable on the ship.
What kind of stateroom did you have for this 7-night cruise?
So we went with an interior room that was fairly close to midship. We've been trying to cruise more every year. So to do that, we've been lowering the cost of the rooms on each one of our cruises. And I'm actually okay with it. I don't mind sleeping in. I do miss the balcony every now and again, but you just walk outside if you feel that way.
Is this your first time on a Quantum class ship?
I've been on Anthem of the Seas before.
Okay.
So I've been on this class in general. I do like the layout of the Quantum class ships, especially for a winter cruise.
Yeah, I was curious because this is a Quantum, I believe, Quantum Ultra class ship. Could you tell any big differences between a Quantum class and Quantum Ultra class?
I don't think there's any real difference between Anthem and Odyssey in general. The location of playmakers, obviously being by the sports court on Odyssey, was different, but the layout of the ship was very similar. I'm not sure if I do all the things that people with families would do. I don't know if the kids' areas are similar, but the regular areas that you go to hang out, the promenade, the casino, all seem about the same.
And as far as an inside room for 2 people for 7 nights, did you find plenty of storage, plugs, and all of that?
So we are always prepared when we go on cruises. So we knew that the plug situation wasn't optimal, but it is a newer ship, so it wasn't terrible. We came armed with a couple of European outlets so that we can get an extra plug source. And we have plugs like extension cords, but ones that are the cruise safe ones, so that we can have our everything plugged in without any issues.
What deck were you on?
Deck 8, I believe.
Deck 8. Were there any noise issues?
So I sleep with a noise machine. So at nighttime, I really never have any issues. But where we were, we never had noise from the people walking up and down the hall. I've stayed in that deck before, and I stayed closer to the end of the hall. And when I did that, you would hear the staff walking in and out. But I never heard anything like that. It was a pretty quiet area of the ship. All
right, let's talk about the food on board. So we'll go up to the Windjammer Marketplace. What did you think of the selection, and did it ever feel too crowded? Because historically, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's cruises have a lot of kids on board.
It was a very kid-heavy ship, and I'll be honest, I was surprised on how everything felt like it was still flowing and not overcrowded. I only went to the Windjammer twice on this cruise, but both times it was fairly easy to find a seat. There was a lot of kids, so there's a lot of hustle and bustle going on, but for the most part, it looked really clean. The flow was nice. It was easy to find somewhere to sit, and all the food selections there, the areas were clean. The food was pretty fresh. I really have no complaints about the food on this particular cruise. It's really good.
How about the main dining room? What type of dining did you have?
So we have my time. We only did it once on this cruise. We did the specialty dining for the most part. We went there at around 6:45 p.m. We were able to sit fairly quickly, and it was a typical main dining room experience. The food was pretty good. The service was nice. The people that worked there were excellent, and for the most part, everything that we ate was pretty good in the main dining room.
With the My Time Dining, is that something that you have to check in with the app whenever you get there or when you're ready to go, or like you said, you just go to the stand and they'll seat you, and you might just wait a couple of moments?
That's what it really is. They have set timing that you can get, but if you want my timing when you book it, you let them know. And I guess the rule of thumb would try to avoid the heavy traffic times, especially when there's a lot of young kids in the ship, because parents are going to be very segmented on their day. We went a little bit later in the night, and they just right in and right out.
Talk to us about some of those specialty restaurants you dined at, and did you get any dining packages beforehand?
So we bought the unlimited dining package, and my wife's really, the food venues on this ship are pretty good. We did 3 times at Giovanni's, a couple of times at Giovanni's Italian Kitchen. We did an Izumi trip. I did avoid the Wonderland place. There's nothing wrong with Wonderland. It's just a one or two and done. If I went with some new friends on a cruise and they never had been there before, I wouldn't mind going there. Mm-hmm. I did hear it's being replaced while we were on the ship, but the other restaurants were really good.
Now, when you say it was unlimited dining, does that mean that if the venue was open for lunch, you could do, like, if you wanted to, lunch and dinner at a venue for 7 days straight?
Yes. As long as the venue is open on sea days, mm-hmm. Most of the especially restaurants were available for lunch and dinner, and we utilized them pretty good. If I have a complaint about food in general, Izumi, which the food is still great, so I don't want to say that anything happened with the quality of the food, but they did lower how much food they give you. Mm-hmm. And it sounds crazy to complain about food size on a cruise, right? I get it. They constantly feed you. But they really did lower, a typical sushi roll was 4 pieces. And, if you eat out anywhere, that's 8. And it looks like they give you less food when you have the dining package, but I don't want to complain about the quality. The quality was still there and the food was excellent.
Do they cap you? Like, if you wanted to get another roll, could you, or would that be an extra charge?
They give you the menu and you get to pick one thing from the top, which is one of their appetizers. You get to pick 2 mains and then a dessert. If you want anything on top of that, you do have to pay.
And is that how all the specialty dining works on Odyssey? It's basically not I want to say a set menu, but you pick one here, and here, and then you're done?
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. A couple of times when I was in the Giovanni's, if you're good with the waiter and you say that you want to try 2 different things, they'll bring it to you. You know what I mean? If you really want to, but mm-hmm. I never had that. He did bring us 2 desserts one day, just to to lighten the mood and have some kind of good time. We really appreciated it. And the food was excellent.
What are your thoughts of Playmakers and the food they serve in there? Because it's always been a mixed bag here. Some like it and some don't.
It's typical, like, it's more bar food to me. It's like a Buffalo Wild Wings. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a step up from the wings, like at Oceans on one of the NCL ships. Mm-hmm. The wings are crispy. The onion ring tower is really good. Obviously, when you have the dining plan, they do give you a $20 per person per day stipend that you can use in the a la carte places like Playmakers. Mm-hmm. And we took advantage of that a couple of times. Even went with some new friends we've been on the ship. And you're allowed to use your dining for, to share food with people at the table. And in a place like that, you can order, a couple of big things of wings and onion ring towers and share food with friends. So it was a good little option to be able to have.
Yeah, the wings at O'Sheehan's, the sauce on the plate weighs more than the chicken they give you.
The chicken has disappeared, and yeah. They don't fry them anymore. They're like smoked wings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
it's not my jam. If when you're drunk at 2 a.m.
Yeah, no,
the wings taste great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not ordering them any other time.
How about the pizza joint down there on the promenade?
It's your typical cruise pizza, Sorrento's. It tastes great at night. The quality of the sauce and cheese, in my opinion, is always really good. Mm-hmm. The one thing that they can't get, especially somebody from New York, New Jersey area, is the crust is just not up to par. But it's really good cruise pizza. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's talk about the entertainment on board. How did it stack up for the 7 nights?
I enjoyed the entertainment on the Odyssey. They had that superhero show on this ship. That's always really fun to see. That's their own production. I do miss having the typical like Broadway theater type shows. I really enjoy all that stuff. But one thing I did do on this cruise that's not really my jam, there was a country band that they were labeling, a country funk band called the Nashville Tenors. Mm-hmm. Besides, I went to go see them, and it's not real. I'm not a country music guy, and ended up staying there. The music was excellent. So it was just, it was a surprise that I liked it. And I actually then got my wife and went to go see the next show. It was really fun, the entertainment in general.
How about other entertainment around the ship, comedy or music?
They had the music hall on this ship, which does different events. They'll do, some trivia and things like that. Then they'll run some karaoke, which I don't really get into, but the kids, there's so many kids on this ship, and they were having a great time in there. Every time I walked by there, it looked like everybody's having a real good time. And there was a couple of bands playing there at nighttime that was just fun. The vibe was good. It's hooked up right to the back end of the casino. So if you're playing and you want to get a little escape, have a drink and dance a little bit, it's a really good place to go, the music hall.
For sure. Let's talk about the casino. How was that as far as the smoke situation and around it? And how was that casino laid out? Is it just one big floor, or is it? Part of me remembers, is there a staircase in there?
Yeah. So the staircase comes down from the promenade area, and you can get right to the casino from there. So it's nice that you have an entrance from the backside by the music hall, and then you also have an entrance from the promenade right in to the casino. It is on one floor. The casino's laid out fairly well on the ship. It is less smoky than an Oasis class Royal Caribbean ship. I feel like those are always the smokiest, but it was never overwhelmingly smoky in there, in my opinion. They had their smoking section on, I would guess, the left side, and on the right side there was not smoking. But even when you got into that little corner where more people were smoking, it wasn't overwhelmingly smoky. So the way that they handle the air system in there, I think, is better than a lot of the other ships that I've been on.
Well, it sounds like you spent a little bit of time in there. So I want to ask you, it seems like current day, 2026, cruise lines getting rid of everything from the claw machines to the coin pushers and just shoving slot machines everywhere. Huff and Puff, Dragon Link, Frankenstein, whatever. Is it too tight in there? Like, are there points where you feel like you have to shimmy by?
It makes big money for them, I get it. So, and this casino had a fairly good layout, but it was a little bit of shimmying. When you went down the one side of the casino where like the cashier's cage was and the casino host, when you were right in front of them, it was good. But if you wanted to walk down that side all the way down to like the music hall or back towards where the bar is, you had to sort of shimmy for bigger guys. So you had to do a little side shimmy every now and again. But they're having that. It's not as bad as like MSC has in the Mergavilla with the tight casino area. Yeah. It's not like that, but it is starting to get noticeable that they're stuffing as much in there as they can.
How are the sea days as far as crowd and congestion, especially with this being a very family heavy ship?
Sea days on this cruise, like I said, with a lot of kids, it felt good. It never felt overcrowded. I did notice when I went to Playmakers that the sports court area was mobbed the whole week, and that's maybe where a lot of the kids were. But overall, the ship's flow felt pretty good. You found seats when you wanted to go places. There wasn't like kids everywhere hanging out on the steps and messing around with the elevator buttons. Like all the typical kid stuff wasn't really happening much, at least, in my experience on this cruise. I felt like the sea days flowed really well. It was overall, it added to the experience of having a great cruise.
Did you do any of the top deck attractions? What is it, the skydiving, flow rider, or that pod?
So the arm that goes up in the air, and I always forget the name of it. We always we did that, which is always really fun. You just go up there and check out stuff. Me and my wife do the free version of it. There's a pay version that you could stay up there longer. But we're cheap. So we just wanted to do the free one and get a little experience with it. And it was cool.
Well, let's talk about your ports of call here. So you leave Bayonne, New Jersey. First stop, Port Canaveral, Florida. How was your day here in Florida?
Port Canaveral for me is stay on the ship. And I'm not a Disney guy, so it's not my thing. One of the things was it was about 55 degrees when we were there. So it was going to minimize, we're not going to go to the beach. We're not going to spend much time doing any of that kind of stuff. So we just hung out on the ship and relaxed. Went to the solarium, the adults only solarium, because it's nice and warm back there, hung out, had some drinks. We slept in a little bit. But overall, it was just a relaxed, calm day.
Do you find that a lot of guests do get off?
I feel like on the kid-heavy cruises, more people get off the ship because they have plans with with either Orlando, with going to Disney or Universal. I feel like there's a lot of people that do that kind of stuff. But overall, when I've stopped there a lot of times on ships, and it seems like only about half the ship gets off, and everywhere else it seems to be a lot higher percentage.
You mentioned it was chilly in Port Canaveral. Did that cool air follow you to Perfect Day?
A little bit. A little bit. It stayed a little bit chilly in Perfect Day, but when in Perfect Day, you just get in that water, have a couple drinks, it'll warm you up.
Do you do any like the adults only beach or like any kind of paid add-ons at Perfect Day?
We were in port. I know we were in port on the new big ships. I forget which one it was. When we noticed that, we booked the adults only area just so we knew we had somewhere to go just to escape the heaviest parts of the crowd. We were able to get a chair. And we don't go there first thing when it opens. We were able to get a chair. We were able to relax there for the day. We met up with some new friends and had a nice day there.
What does that adults only area set you back?
I believe that we had got it for about $80 a person. Doug, it was one of those, I'm not 100% sure on that one, and I did not write it in my notes, but That's usually about, if it gets much more higher than that, I would consider not getting it, just because I like to cruise more every year, and I want to try to save a few shekels on each cruise I go on.
Next day was Nassau. Was the beach club open when you were there?
Yes, the New Royal Beach Club was open. We took part in that.
How was it?
Was a promo on Black Friday because the drink package does not continue out to that island from the ship. So they have a separate package that you can buy. They gave us some type of deal that we got that package for free as long as we bought the internet package and some type of dining package that we bought for about $220 a person. Mm-hmm. It ended up, we broke it down for each thing that it was coming with, and ended up being a great deal.
When you're drinking at the beach resort, Paradise, are you getting charged a VAT tax and having to pay anything out of pocket?
I had the drink package there, so there was no charges whatsoever. I brought a few bucks so I could tip some of the bartenders when I was there. Yeah. I would, I always try to do that, but I'm not sure if you pay a la carte per drink, if you have to pay the VAT. But we did not have to pay anything additional. It was just included with whatever package we purchased. Well,
back to the beach club. I mean, it's laid out in 3 different, zones or areas. What is the lay of the land like, and what did you think of it?
It's a long slim line. You know what I mean? So it starts off, and we were in the Party Cove section. I'm not sure if it's called Party Cove, but it was the party section where the DJ is and all that stuff. But I did take a walk down to where the kids area was. It's fairly large. There's a lot of seating there. We were in with Utopia, so there's a lot of people between Odyssey and Utopia being there. You could find a chair up until about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then it got busy. Yeah. But they seemed to have enough bartenders, and the food venues were never long lines. The ice cream vendors seemed to move quick, and the overall movement of the island was great. I thought the layout was pretty good personally, and the beach is just gorgeous.
If I understand this correctly, because I have not been yet, but you get off the ship, there's a loading area. They take you on a water shuttle across the bay there and drop you off, and it's back and forth all day?
Yeah, it's a basic. So when you get off the ship, you have to walk down the first long area of the Nassau port. Mm-hmm. When you get to the end there's going to be a sign that tell you that you go to Royal Beach Club, and then you just scan your room card, and then you walk down a little, and you walk down a little pier, and there's 4 shuttles there, and they take you to the island. It was fairly quick. We had to wait 5 minutes there for enough people to fill up the thing.
Did it feel like it was at capacity?
At noon, when it was getting close to thinking about going back at 1:32, it felt pretty packed there. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of noise and a lot of hustle and bustle. I grew up in New York, New Jersey. Yeah. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me, but I could see somebody that's looking for a more laid back experience would probably not want to be in the party area I was in when it got to about noon.
And what was the food situation like?
They have these huts all over the place that have basically island inspired type foods, crab cakes, different fruity drinks, stuff with pineapple sauces and all that different kind of stuff, ceviches. It was really good.
And all that was included?
That was all included with the cost of getting onto the island.
Did you notice any upsells for steak or anything?
I didn't see anything like that. I only really went through the one. I would assume if they were going to be doing stuff like that, it would be in that general area. I didn't notice anything that asked for money anywhere, to be honest.
Okay. So you make your way back to the cruise ship there, Odyssey of the Seas, and a couple days back before getting to Bayonne, New Jersey. Anything eventful happen on the way back?
It was pretty laid back on the way back. We got on the ship. We were able to leave. The seas were calm on this cruise. The entertainment was good. The food was good those last few days. We really had a great time on this cruise in general. We never had a bad day, or just never had anybody else spoil your day. There was nobody fighting or arguing anywhere. It was really good.
We may have talked about this on your last sailing when you did NCL, where the cruise line's casino program is a bit of a Pandora's box where you really don't know what triggers what, at least for NCL and especially Carnival. Is Royal Caribbean, is it different?
So Royal Caribbean is probably, in my opinion, a very straightforward plan. It's basically about $5 a point.
Okay.
If you get yourself up to, I forget if it's 1,500 or 2,500 points, you get put into prime status. Once you get there, you get a free cruise, free prime cruise for the year, and you get free alcohol for you on the cruise while you're in the casino.
Okay. What fascinates me is how do they keep track of, I know some casinos are moving towards like RFID chips to track how many, like what your coin in is at the tables. Do the cruise lines do the same thing?
So that's the one problem with cruise lines. The pit bosses seem to be the one that's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can get a lot more points at a table playing for the same amount of time, the same amount of money one day versus a different day. And especially on one cruise compared to a different cruise, because a lot of different, different pit boss altogether, a whole different team.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that they tell you that there is a set way to do it. Nobody can tell you what that is. So that is something that's a little bit of still a Pandora's box with Royal Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I believe it's the most transparent program that we have at sea.
All right. So you make your way back to Bayonne. How was debark?
Debark was just as good as embark on this one. We had, I believe, one of the middle times to get off, 9:30. We were ready a little bit earlier than that. We went down to the Promenade Cafe and had a little bit of coffee and just sat there, and then literally just walked off the ship and got a porter to help us take the stuff outside. My father-in-law picked us up and we got out of there. It was real smooth. It's
been about a decade since I've sailed out of Bayonne. Is that a port that, if I recall correctly, you're driving for a little bit and then you're entering like this port area, kind of, I don't want to say it's like a peninsula, but it's not near anything major, right? Not like Baltimore or Miami or Lauderdale.
It's way different than those, but if you haven't been there in a decade, now there's all housing in that area. They put high-end housing and condos there and a Costco.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on. On a Sunday in New Jersey, there's restrictions about retail or stuff like that. So I don't believe that becomes an issue pretty much with the cruising, but their people are living there. So there's a potential of more traffic. It has not changed, in my opinion, our embark or debark since they put all that extra stuff there. But there's not much going on in Bayonne, New Jersey at all.
Gotcha. Now that you've sailed Quantum class twice, do you have any first-time tips to offer anyone who might be sailing?
You know, Royal Caribbean in general, just make sure, especially a first-time cruiser, make sure you're checking out all the different entertainment options, even if it's stuff that you don't classically like or you think you might not be into. Because I really got surprised when I found how much I enjoyed the country band. It's something I would have never done unless I walked in like that, and it's just one of those things that adds to the experience and the uniqueness of cruising, being able to walk in and out of a show, to try everything out. Go in. If you don't like it, leave. You don't lose nothing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
Make sure you try everything. Cruising is fun and just keep it that way.
What was the vibe like going into 2026 since you were there over New Year's?
I am a football fan, and there was a big football game on my team playing that day. So it messed up my early part of New Year's. Not messed up because we won, but after that, we went and we joined all the different festivities for New Year's. So they had the main promenade set up sort of like Times Square would be. Then they had a Cafe 270 in the back, a more laid back vibe with like show tunes being played and a full string orchestra playing music and people dancing and stuff like that. So it was across the ship. There were parties all over the place. They were even renting out space for some people, like VIP areas. It was fun. That 20, 30 minutes of leading up to the midnight ball drop obviously felt like a mob scene. Everything was packed. Everybody was in the same place, but the crowds dispersed fairly quickly. Once the ball dropped, 10 minutes later, everybody was just doing their thing and you were able to move around the ship and have a good time again.
These holiday cruises can be a pretty penny because, well, the kids are out of school and, of course, cruising is historically a family affair. With that being said, was the value there for the money you paid?
So I believe so. I did pay a little bit more on this cruise than I would classically on my previous cruises. I did downgrade my room category to offset some of that expense. In my opinion, me and my wife are already looking at booking a New Year's cruise for next year. It's the best way to spend New Year's.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it was just really fun and the vibe was great and you can drink and not worry about driving home.
Yeah, it's true.
Fun.
What was the biggest highlight of this cruise for you?
I love cruising. So getting on the ship and just being there was great. Spending time with my wife, having a great time every day, meeting new people. We met some great new friends on this ship that we'll end up cruising with again in the future. I think that if I had to pick one thing, that's something that is going to stick around for a while. That makes it really fun and awesome to me.
In closing here, your final thoughts of Odyssey of the Seas.
Odyssey of the Seas is a great ship. If you've never done a Quantum class ship, I would definitely recommend this one. It has enclosed adults only area if you want to be able to do it in the cold weather or Alaska. And the layout is great, and the staff is just amazing. It's a great ship.
I've been talking with Jason about his New Year's Eve cruise on Royal Caribbean's Odyssey of the Seas out of Bayonne, New Jersey. Jason, always good talking to you, my friend, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,